In the opulent confines of a luxury hotel, the peaceful night is shattered by the frantic screams of District Attorney Margaret. With panic in her eyes, she rushes to cover the windows, her breath ragged as the gravity of her predicament dawns on her. Lying in front of her, face down and motionless, is her young companion. She hastily checks for her bag beneath him, only to smear her designer dress with blood. Fabulous. Just what she needed. Blood and fashion don't mix. Margaret grabs her phone, hands shaking like she's on her sixth espresso. She scrolls through her contacts, mind racing. She calls a mysterious number saved in her contacts, identified only by bizarre symbols. The ringing seems eternal until an automated voice informs her that the number is non-existent or out of service. Suddenly, her phone buzzes, making her jump. She answers, and a man's deep, authoritative voice slices through her panic. "How did you get this number?" he asks, not bothering with small talk. Margaret stammers that someone had given it to her for emergencies, a safety net for situations she'd never hoped to face. The voice on the other end lets out an exasperated sigh and asks for her location. His instructions are clipped. Put the "Do Not Disturb" sign on the door, don't touch a thing, don't make any calls, and for heaven's sake, don't open the door until he arrives. Click. The line goes dead. Enter Jack, the mysterious cleaner, striding through the hotel lobby with the kind of confidence usually reserved for celebrities and spies. With the smooth swipe of a service card, he's in, taking the elevator up to Margaret's penthouse. Inside, Margaret eyes the young man's body anxiously, jumping at every sound until she hears the specific knock Jack had promised. Relieved, she opens the door to find him standing there, all business. He sizes up the room with the efficiency of a surgeon. "Pour yourself a drink," he advises. "You're going to need it." Margaret, trembling, mutters that she checked into the hotel under a different name to avoid any ties to her real identity. It's not her first rodeo in discretion. Tears sting her eyes as she insists she hasn't done anything wrong. Jack, who probably wouldn't care if she'd robbed a bank or adopted 12 ferrets, simply says, "I'm not here to judge. I'm here to fix." But before he can begin, a knock interrupts them. Margaret's eyes widen with a fresh wave of dread. "I didn't order room service," she whispers. In walks Nick, dressed too casually for someone entering a crime scene. He surveys the room with a grin that would look more at home in a courtroom than a penthouse covered in broken glass. "I'm here to help," he says, his tone annoyingly chipper. Jack's brow furrows. "And you are?" Nick replies, "The other guy. The one called when things go south. But it looks like you're already here." Before Jack can retort, Nick mentions the hidden cameras in the penthouse and casually answers a call that seems to confirm this. He hands the phone to Margaret, who retreats to the bathroom to continue the conversation. Jack's jaw tightens as he turns to Nick. "Hidden cameras? Are you serious?" Nick shrugs. Margaret steps out, pale and shaken, phone on speaker. The voice on the other end belongs to Pamela, the hotel's owner. She insists that Margaret's insistence on using her own contact complicates things, forcing both Jack and Nick to collaborate. Both men protest, but Pamela shuts them down. Jack moves to pack up his gear, ready to leave this circus behind, but Margaret pleads with him to stay. Pamela, in her no-nonsense tone, echoes the sentiment, forcing Nick to stay put too. Tensions crackle between the two men like a live wire. Jack starts interrogating Margaret, who recounts her night, the bar, the drinks, the young man, the unfortunate turn of events. But Nick interrupts with his own questions, driving Jack's patience thinner than a wafer. Finally, Jack tells Margaret to go home, pretend nothing happened, and trust that they'll handle it. Alone with the body, he sets to work while Nick lounges around sipping a soda, watching like he's at the movies. "Aren't you going to help?" Jack snaps. Nick smirks. "I'm just here to supervise. You're the one with the messy job." Jack mutters something under his breath and gets back to work, removing evidence piece by piece. Suddenly, Nick discovers a backpack stashed behind a cabinet. Inside, bricks of white powder that look like they belong in a wizard's lab. "Well, that complicates things," Nick says, suddenly more interested. Pamela's voice buzzes over the phone again, demanding an update. When she hears about the substances, her tone turns icy. "Get rid of them." But both Jack and Nick agree that a kid carrying that kind of merchandise probably has dangerous connections. Pamela orders them to find the true owner and return the stash, cutting the call short before anyone can protest. Jack's eyes flash with frustration. "We need to deal with the body first," he insists. Nick, however, leans against the wall with an infuriating grin. The room vibrates with tension. Jack manages to package the body into a luggage cart, using hotel sheets to cover it. Nick watches as if rating his technique. "Nice work," he comments. Jack doesn't dignify him with a response, but suggests they can finish faster if Nick stops being a deadweight. Nick agrees. They roll the cart to a service elevator, where Nick distracts the security guard by causing a minor system glitch. Jack seizes the opportunity, wheels the cart into the garage, and loads the body into his car. As he closes the trunk, a grim smile tugs at his lips. Another job done. Almost. Now, all that remains is erasing those pesky recording tapes. Let's hope your cleanup is as good as your act, Nick remarks. Jack throws him a withering glance. Let's hope you're better at supervising than sipping soda. Nick was firm. Jack couldn't come along. Orders were orders. Jack squinted suspiciously, tilting his head. The tension crackled between them as they swapped accusations, comparing resumes in a childish standoff until Jack, ever paranoid, dropped the hammer. We need to erase the footage. This could be a setup. What if Pamela planted the kid with those substances just to frame us and twist things in her favor? Before they could dive deeper into their conspiracy theories, the trunk popped open. Both men spun around, eyes wide as saucers, only to find the kid alive and blinking. Nick didn't hesitate. His fist met the kid's face while Jack slammed the trunk shut with the kind of speed that would have made a magician jealous. He waved at the curious guard, throwing on his best, nothing to see here grin. Back in the car, Jack shook his head. No pulse, I swear. And you didn't even check, so don't you dare complain now. He leaned back, scowling. Still think this isn't a setup? Nick, never one to dwell, interrupted. We need to move now. The kid's awake. Let's use that to wrap this up fast. They agreed to take him to a back alley doctor. Jack's attempts to reach his trusted contact fell flat, so Nick, with a shrug and a smirk, directed them toward his go-to medical pro, Chinatown's finest. They drove in tense silence until Jack, ever the overthinker, muttered, You know, the Albanians were in this trade not long ago. That European shipment that disappeared without a trace? They'll take out anyone they think snatched it. Nick shot him a sideways glance, as if debating whether Jack was unraveling or onto something. And what? You think the kid's bait? Think about it. Someone could have sent him to cozy up to Margaret, the DA, clean up the city, open the market for new business. Sounds insane, but, Nick sighed. Yeah, real insane. They pulled up to their destination, and Nick told Jack to wait in the car. Inside, he found June, the doctor, giving him a look that said she'd rather stitch up a shark than deal with him. He pleaded, promising it was urgent. She relented, stepping into the street and eyeing the car. And if he talks? What's your plan then? Before Nick could answer, Jack emerged from the shadows, all swagger and unresolved history. June didn't answer my call? She dismissed him with a wave, redirecting the moment back to business. Back at the car, they popped the trunk and jumped back, startled as the kid gasped awake like an undead extra from a horror flick. He was rushed inside and laid out on a table while June examined him. What did he take? She glared up at them. Silence. She poked at his wrist and muttered, barely a heartbeat. No wonder you thought he was dead. Jack, ever the parrot, repeated it for Nick. June rolled her eyes. Out. Both of you. Now. They retreated to the restaurant next door, nursing whiskeys and reminiscing about June. Best doc in town, Nick said, raising his glass. Yeah, and she's all business. Nick chuckled. You thought we had a thing, huh? Jack's brow furrowed, realizing he'd been outplayed. Before he could retort, a loud bang. The kid bolted from the clinic, screaming into the icy night. June's shout chased them out the door. Stop him. They burst into motion, Jack reversing the car out of the alley while Nick launched into a sprint after the kid, weaving through neon-lit sidewalks and narrow corridors. In the mall, the kid outmaneuvered them, zigzagging through stores, leaping racks, and dodging mannequins with a speed that defied his situation. Jack, not one to be outdone, revved up, skidding to a stop as the kid darted into view. The brakes screeched, but the car clipped the kid's hip, sending him flying. Miraculously, he somersaulted mid-air, landing on his feet like an Olympic gymnast, and kept running. The chase carried on into the labyrinth of New York streets, cold winds biting at their faces. The kid turned down a dead-end alley. Game over. Back with June, she slammed the meds at them through the window, her face stony. Don't come back. Jack cleared his throat. Never had a thing with Nick, did you? Nope. Window slammed. And that was that. They loaded the kid into the car and headed to a rundown motel, tossing Margaret's spare clothes at him to change into. The front desk clerk, unfazed, offered them entertainment packages. They grabbed the cheapest room, a tacky safari theme complete with fake foliage and plastic animal heads. Inside, they told the kid to sit. Stay put, Jack ordered before they stepped out to strategize. Okay, I'll lead, Jack decided. They re-entered, but Nick, true to form, went rogue, laying out the packages in front of the kid. Jack's jaw clenched as he tried to maintain control. Who gave you this? The kid's eyes darted, shaking his head. I don't know. Frustrated, they stepped out again. Jack glared at Nick, showing him the goods? What were you thinking? Nick crossed his arms. What? You wanted to offer him tea? They shared a tense nod, agreeing on a more aggressive approach. Inside, they cornered the kid. This time, it worked. He cracked. It's from range. Both men blinked, stunned. How did a teenager get caught up with one of the biggest names in the city's underbelly? How? Jack asked, leaning in. The kid gulped, his breathing shallow. Diego. Met him at business classes. His mom died because she couldn't pay for her meds. I wanted to help. He asked me to deliver this for his boss. Nick's eyes narrowed. Then what? How'd you end up at the hotel? The kid's hands trembled as he explained. I was supposed to get an address, but I got distracted, walked into the bar. Met a woman. She invited me up. One thing led to another and He glanced at the packages, sampled some. Jack pinched the bridge of his nose. And the address? Hidden my phone, wallet, everything. Planned to use a locator, but Diego left it at the restaurant. Nick slapped the wall, exasperated. Great. A scavenger hunt. Jack glanced at the kid, then at Nick. We're heading to that restaurant. Amidst the hustle of the city streets, the kid, eyes full of determination, looks up at Jack and Nick as they drive. Curiosity wins him over, and he blurts out, How long have you two been doing this? You work like an elite tag team. Jack smirks, long enough to know what we're doing. But Nick, with a slight edge, shoots Jack a knowing glance. The kid, oblivious to the underlying tension, sighs, mentioning his exam next week. Jack, patting him on the back, reassures him, You'll ace it, kid. One delivery and you're free. Nick's jaw tightens. He knows what that actually means. When they pull up at a bustling restaurant, the kid hops out, ready to retrieve the locator they've been chasing. I got this, he shouts confidently. But Jack and Nick don't move. Trusting the kid is not an option. Just as they begin to fidget in the car, they hear the sounds of a lively Croatian wedding celebration inside. Peering through the tinted window, they spot a familiar and dangerous figure. Dimitri, a man they've both double-crossed before. They exchange a silent, intense glance. Being seen together? A recipe for disaster. They bark at the kid to spill the location of the device. But the kid, now suspicious, demands some answers. Why are you so desperate for this thing? He challenges. Reluctantly, they explain that in their business, loyalty is a flaw and their clients prefer solo operators. The stakes rise as they realize Dimitri's suspicious gaze is sweeping the room. Time for Plan B. Sneaking in through a service entrance, Jack and Nick blend into the chaos of Dimitri's daughter's wedding. Splitting up, they move through the packed hall, eyes scanning the area. The kid, meanwhile, takes a bold approach and jumps behind the bar, rummaging for the locator. The bartender, unimpressed, slides a cocktail his way. Before he can reject the drink, Dimitri's men notice him and whisk him away to a dim, unfriendly back room. The agents cover blown, they bolt to help, only to find themselves shoved onto the dance floor by Dimitri's enforcers. The room stills, and Dimitri's eyes lock onto them. To defuse the tension, Jack and Nick aim their weapons at each other, pretending to have a score to settle. Dimitri raises a brow, halts the music, and, after a painfully tense pause, bursts out laughing. Friends, he exclaims, apologizing to his bewildered daughter. The charade buys them a moment, but only just. With forced smiles, Jack and Nick lower their guns. Just here to pay respects, Jack mutters. Nick, ever quick, jabs. Impersonators these days, eh? Jack, patience evaporating, lunges at him, sparking a brief, furious scuffle. Dimitri's men drag Nick out as Dimitri, still chuckling, offers Jack a drink. Jack politely declines, slipping away into the shadows. Outside, Jack spots the kid, blood dripping from his nose, but he reassures them they still have time to wrap things up. Taking a breather, they huddle for some food. The kid, oblivious to the undercurrents of betrayal, wonders aloud how they ended up in this line of work. Jack and Nick exchange loaded looks, their silence louder than any confession. The kid heads to the restroom, leaving Jack and Nick to argue about their next move. Jack, gnawing at the edges of a plan, suggests they let the kid deliver the locator and leave the cleanup to someone else. Nick accuses him of backing out. And if he's still alive after? Nick challenges. Jack's steely gaze is answer enough. Suddenly, the locator in Nick's pocket vibrates. They freeze. The kid returns, excitement in his step. It's go time. Through the cold streets of New York, they drive to a deserted spot. This is it, Jack mutters. The kid steps out with the package, sparing one last glance back. Jack's stomach knots. He knows the kid's fate is sealed. Before he can act, headlights blaze and armed Albanians spill from their cars, gunfire erupting in an orchestra of chaos. Bullets rain on Jack's car, shattering the windows. With grim efficiency, Jack and Nick grab weapons from the trunk, taking down 3 attackers. But amidst the cacophony, they hear gunshots inside the building. Their eyes dart to the bodies in the snow. 2 lifeless figures, limp and blood-stained. Racing in, they find themselves surrounded by abandoned limousines and more silence than they'd like. Bodies litter the floor, but there's no sign of the kid. Just as dread creeps in, a car trunk creaks open, revealing the wide-eyed kid inside, pale but alive. What now? He stammers. The duo shares a tense look. Finish the job, Jack says, his voice hollow. Nick eyes the scene and suggests rearranging the bodies, making it look convincing. Jack approaches the kid, gun in hand, muscles taut, but when it comes to pulling the trigger, his finger falters. Nick, sensing Jack's hesitation, shoots one of the packages instead, blowing it apart. That'll sell the story, he mutters. With their car now unusable, they begin the long walk to the subway. As they navigate the shadows, Nick notices a stain on Jack's sweater. You've got blood on you, he says, but the deeper sadness in Jack's eyes says more. Reaching the kid's house, they give him one last warning. Stay quiet, or next time we won't be so friendly, Jack growls. The kid nods, torn between fear and gratitude. He steps inside and tells his father that some men want to talk. Inside, the wolves, as they're known, see the father's Sinatra records and share an odd moment of calm. After a quick, vague explanation, they say their goodbyes. The city is waking up as Jack and Nick slide into a corner diner. Sipping coffee, they reflect on the wild night. The tracker in that package, Nick says, we didn't see it until it was almost too late. Jack shrugs, doesn't matter. As long as the kid keeps quiet, they share a tired laugh. For now, the crisis is over. Just as Jack rises to leave, Nick leans in, voice low. Pamela made me work with you. Jack's eyes widen as realization dawns. They start piecing it together. They've been played. A trap to eliminate them both. Suddenly aware of the shifting air, they spot men closing in, guns at the ready. I guess if we get out of this, Jack mutters, I'll tell you my real name. Nick grins, deal. Now, let's not die before breakfast. And that's a wrap on the adrenaline-pumping chaos of Wolves. Wolf-face from high-stakes chases to jaw-dropping twists, this roller coaster of crime and betrayal kept us guessing till the very end. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell icon for more thrilling recaps and movie madness.